Now we're going to talk about the induction training and support programs that franchisors give to their new franchisees. There are a number of areas for future success for franchisors to consider. The first one is to recruit well, bring the right people into the network. The second one is to train hard and give good induction training. And if you do both of those, the third one will hopefully be to offer light support. And if you follow these simple guidelines, you will have the best chance of success. In terms of training franchisees, we're going to look at two areas: the induction training and then the initial ongoing training. Research has proven that the quality of the induction training and the initial ongoing training that is given to franchisees by a franchisor has a direct impact upon the future success of each individual franchisee and therefore the success of the network in general. So it's really important to get this right. The induction training is an initial package of training that's provided to every new franchisee as they join the business. The costs for this are normally included in the initial franchise fee paid by the franchisee when they join the network. The length of the training varies and has to be based upon the individual needs of the business. The general norm is that the induction training can last for between 1 and 2 weeks, but there are exceptions to this, where a small number of franchisors may deliver training over a number of days and some will deliver training over several weeks. The induction training is always delivered after the franchise agreement is signed and the initial fee is paid, so the individual is legally part of the franchise network. The main areas of focus to consider when developing the induction training program are that it should be linked to the operations manual, and this is a really key point to ensure that franchisees read, understand and continue to use the operations manual on an ongoing basis during the life of the business. It has to be linked to the skills that are required and based upon the systems that are needed by each individual in order to operate the business successfully on day one. In addition to the skills element, the induction training is a unique opportunity to enable new franchisees to understand your business culture and become part of it, and a huge opportunity for relationship building. The same programme of induction support should be delivered to everyone, irrespective of their background and skill set. So as a franchisor, you know they have been through your comprehensive induction training programme. The training schedule should be an induction to the company and introduce the new franchisee to the key people that they will work with on an ongoing basis. It should include elements of the technical and the skills training that they need to operate the business successfully on a day-to-day basis when they start their own business at some time in the future. It needs to cover all of their legal and statutory responsibilities and give them some introduction and some guidelines towards financial management and how they will run the business from a financial perspective. If required, it should also cover staff recruitment, staff training and staff management, and elements of the sales and marketing techniques that are used by the franchisor and will be used by the franchisee in their business. At the end of the training, there needs to be a review to look at how successful the franchisee has been throughout the term of the induction training, and if there are any skills gaps that need to be considered and filled when they start to run their business. The initial support continues once the initial training has completed and is delivered on site to the new franchisee. It's linked to the end of training review regarding the needs analysis, as well as covering all of the other aspects of the business that the franchisee needs to be supported in during the early days of the business trading. Areas to consider in relation to ongoing training are elements such as technical training, sales and marketing, business management, financial management, looking at new products and introducing new services and innovations into the network, and generally providing the franchisee and the staff with motivation and support to help them continue running the business successfully on a day-to-day basis. As the business grows and as the franchisees become more experienced, they will also need support on an ongoing basis in relation to business planning and help them develop and expand their business using the business plan as a management tool. And finally, in relation to induction training and the initial support, don't make any assumptions about people coming into the business. Everyone should go through the same induction training process and don't undertrain. People come into the business and they look at franchising generally because they don't have any previous business experience in the sector, and they need to know how to run the business on an operational basis on day one. So it's really worth investing time and resource in quality induction and ongoing training with your new franchisees, and this will absolutely save you and your staff many, many hours in the future and save you many telephone calls to provide them with that support if the training is weak.
I'm going to talk for a while about monitoring franchisee performance. One of the obvious benefits to a franchisee of investing in a franchise is that they have access to a proven business system and will receive both training and ongoing support from the franchisor. Part of this support will be as a result of the franchisor monitoring the progress of each franchisee and identifying where underperformance might be occurring. Franchisors have both the right and the responsibility to monitor the performance of their franchisees. Without efficient monitoring, there can be no certainty that franchisees are following the system or that they will continue to do so. Equally, unless the franchisor knows the detail of the franchisee's businesses, it will be unable to provide the specific advice, help and support that underpin the franchisee-franchisor relationship. The franchisor will also want to know that the franchisee is trading profitably and will, therefore, continue to trade and generate income for the franchisor. So why do franchisors need to monitor their franchisees' activity? Well, it's all about protection. Firstly, to protect your brand. Your franchise agreement will allow your franchisees to trade under your brand name. If any of them fails to deliver your brand promise, it's likely to affect your own business directly. Then it's important to protect your own income. Most franchisors rely heavily on fees earned from their franchisees for their income. The ongoing management services fee is, in the majority of cases, based on a percentage of the franchisee's turnover. It's important, therefore, that all of their turnover is fully declared. As a franchisor, you'll also want to protect your customers from any franchisee who's not delivering good product or services. And yes, they are your customers, even though the product or service is being delivered by a franchisee. At the same time, you'll wish to protect your own franchisees who might be adversely affected by a nearby franchisee who may have gained a bad reputation. And finally, you'll wish to protect the franchisee from him or herself. Most franchisees have never run a business before and are therefore very naive when it comes to business management. Without your careful guidance, they may make decisions which are contrary to your system and possibly damaging to their business. So, what to monitor? Well, monitoring processes need to be developed in two distinct areas: system compliancy and financial activity, which includes sales, profitability and cash flow. Both are critical to the long-term sustainability of both the franchisees and the franchisors' businesses. So let's first consider the issues surrounding system compliancy. Two documents provide the basis for monitoring how well franchisees are complying with the franchise system. Firstly, the franchise agreement, which is the formal legal contract that governs the franchisee-franchisor relationship and outlines the responsibilities and obligations of both parties. It's often said that the franchise agreement, once it's been signed, is rarely looked at until there is a problem with persistent non-compliancy, although by that time it's often too late, as the franchisee-franchisor relationship may have become irreparably damaged. The other key document is the operations manual, which gives the detail of how the day-to-day activities of the business must be conducted. It can also be used as a training manual or a reference book, but it also lays down the standards that the franchisee must adhere to in every aspect of the operation. This is, if you like, the rule book, which you'll refer to if a franchisee fails to fully comply with the franchise system. The operations manual will also specify what information needs to be reported to the franchisor and when it must be delivered. It will also lay out the general principles of customer care to be observed by the franchisee, with particular relevance to how the franchisee should deal with any complaint about a product or service which has been unsatisfactory. There may even be an obligation in the franchise agreement to report to the franchisor any customer complaint and the solution provided. This provides a further opportunity to monitor the franchisee's performance. Whilst ensuring that the franchisee is following all the procedures and processes outlined in the operations manual, the franchisor will also want to monitor the franchisee's financial performance. It's important that each franchisee produces an annual business plan and the franchisor has access to it. The business plan should contain sales, profitability and cash flow forecasts for at least the coming 12 months, and also the proposals for how these forecasts are going to be achieved. For example, it's not sufficient to say that the franchisee is aiming for a 10% increase in sales. The plan should also identify how that will be achieved by, for example, increased marketing or better trained staff or improved customer retention. With such forecasts in place, it will be possible for both the franchisee and the franchisor to compare the actual financial performance with the forecasts and take remedial action if any is needed. This is a key area where franchisors need to establish management accounting and reporting structures. To do this, franchisors are increasingly using bespoke CRM and accounting software, which allows them to monitor all of the franchisee's operational and financial activity. Such systems can reduce the need for direct reporting by the franchisee. Moreover, it will typically give real-time reporting on sales turnover, which will allow the franchisor to issue invoices for the management services fee without having to wait for the franchisee to submit a management service fee declaration. More and more franchisors are also specifying the format in which the franchisee's annual accounts must be submitted. This allows for comparisons and benchmarking across the network to be more accurate. However, these may not be the accounts which are subsequently submitted to HMRC for taxation purposes, as an accountant may be able to make some legitimate adjustments to mitigate a tax liability. Every business ought to identify those factors that are critical to the business's success. These might relate to minimum sales levels, achieved levels of gross margin, control of key expense areas, or high levels of customer service. Setting key performance indicators, KPIs, around these critical success factors provides another means of measuring progress or activity, and may not only as a means of monitoring progress, but also as a motivational tool as people strive to improve performance. The franchisee-franchisor relationship is one of almost total interdependence. Each is largely dependent on the other to achieve their business goals, and yet at the same time there's a potential friction as what benefits one of the parties can be at the expense of the other. This fact needs to be acknowledged by both parties, starting during the recruitment process and being continually reinforced throughout the lifetime of the relationship. One of the benefits often spoken about relating to franchising is that the fact that a franchisee who has invested sometimes large sums of money in their business will be more motivated than someone who's simply an employee. It may be surprising to learn, however, that franchisors interviewed for the BFA franchise surveys over the years have consistently named franchisee comfort level as being one of the key factors restricting the growth of their business. So what do they mean when they speak of such comfort levels? Well, typically they mean when a franchisee achieves a certain level of income which meets their aspirations, they're no longer hungry to grow their business, even though opportunities to do so may exist. However, this frustrates the franchisor, who may have granted an exclusive territory to this franchisee, who's failing to exploit the opportunity and therefore limiting the franchisor's growth. In these circumstances, franchisors continuously look for ways to get their franchisees to produce better results. However, one of the factors that limits the franchisor is the fact that whilst they could control how the franchisee operates the system through the franchise agreement and the operations manual, they cannot control how well the franchisee builds their, and therefore the franchisor's, business. It's often said that franchising is a people business. This is another way of describing the interdependent relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor. Each party needs the other to make their business successful. They need to have common values and aspirations. They need to be a good fit. The franchisee needs to understand what is expected of him or her and to commit wholeheartedly to delivering on their responsibilities to their franchisor. The franchisor must share its aspirations with the franchisees, both during the initial recruitment process and throughout the life of the relationship. However, they must also be continually aware of each franchisee's aspirations and seek ways of engaging with them on a joint journey to success. Franchisors often speak of the franchisee life cycle to illustrate the various stages that a franchisee might go through. They start like a child. In this phase, the early months or years of the franchisee's business, he's totally dependent upon the franchisor for help, information and assistance. He recognises and accepts that the franchisor knows far more about the business than he does and accepts and acts upon advice and guidance. However, here comes the adolescent. The childlike state was never going to last forever, was it? As the franchisee begins to feel more confident and has a better understanding of some parts of the business, there's a temptation for them to think that they not only understand everything there is to know about the business, but also understand it a lot better than the franchisor. This is the point at which the franchisee is most likely to try a little muscle flexing to see just how far they can go in the relationship. They may resent paying the management services fee as they feel they no longer need the support of the franchisor. Hopefully, the franchisee achieves a level of adult and a level of maturity without too much conflict with the franchisor during the adolescent period. This is the beginning of the period when the adolescent, who thought his parents knew absolutely nothing, suddenly discovers that they seem to have learnt an awful lot in a very short period of time. The relationship has matured. The franchisee once again accepts the role of the franchisor and will often seek out the very guidance and help that was resisted during the adolescent stage. Then comes middle age. This is potentially the period that is most likely to correspond to what the franchisor describes as the franchisee's comfort level. Appropriate levels of earning have been reached, and perhaps the golf course seems to beckon more strongly. And so to early retirement. It's at this point that the franchisor may introduce the concept of early retirement to the franchisee, perhaps by introducing a potential purchaser for his business or even suggesting that he sell part of his territory. Equally, at this point, the franchisee may reject the proposal and either be stimulated to develop the business further to achieve a better ultimate sale price, or may slip even deeper into semi-retirement. What is important to remember is that at each of the above stages, the franchisee will be more receptive to some approaches from the franchisor than at others. Therefore, the franchisor must be able to recognise the stage that a franchisee is at and structure their relationship accordingly. This situation must also be recognised by the support staff who deal most directly with the franchisees out in the field. They need to recognise that there is no one-size-fits-all solutions. Every franchisee has individual needs. Support staff need to get to know their franchisees on a level that allows them to be at various times a teacher, a friend, a coach, a confidant, and when necessary, a policeman. They have perhaps one of the most difficult roles to play because they need to make things happen, but have little authority to make them happen. What they achieve with the franchisee's consent. They need therefore to focus on the franchisee's aspirations and show how they can help them to achieve them. Franchisors use a variety of tools to encourage franchisees to engage with them on a journey to a bigger and more profitable business. Every opportunity should be taken to improve the relationship and share each other party's vision and value. Every communication, whether a conference, a newsletter, or regional or local meetings, should be seen as an opportunity to improve engagement. The field support staff play an important role in this continual updating of the relationship. An infrequent but valuable opportunity to discuss future progress arises when a franchisee's agreement is up for renewal at the end of the term. Although the franchisee might have a right to renewal, provided they're not in breach of their agreement, it does provide an opportunity for the franchisor to review past performance and agree new objectives with the franchisee prior to confirming the renewal. If no agreement on improvement performance is forthcoming, the franchisee will at least be put on notice that there may be no further renewal at the end of the current term. This may then prove to be a catalyst for a discussion about selling the business as a going concern during the upcoming term. This may have a negative effect on the franchisee-franchisor relationship, but if handled well by the franchisor, this ought not to have a major impact on the future business. As was said previously, franchising is a people business. Relationships are all important. From the start of the recruitment process to the end of the business relationship, both franchisees and franchisors should strive to jointly improve the relationship and thus create more success for both parties.
Our initial training will kick off with 1 week in the States. They then return, start their business, and they get an additional 1 week, but spread out over the first 3 months in the UK, so they can now start to implement those learnings and make sure they get off to the flying start they deserve. So our ongoing training and updates to our system is really important to Sandler, because being a training and consulting organisation, we need to have train the trainer stuff going on all the time. So our franchisees need to go to the American conferences, which are 3 times a year. They need to come to our UK conferences, which are also 3 times a year. They have the option to attend support days, which are around 6 times a year. We also have an online learning system that they are encouraged to spend time on, really 1 or 2 hours every week, so that they are staying sharp and at the cutting edge of what Sandler do. We monitor franchisee performance very closely. Big picture, we have an annual review with each franchisee where we look at their business plan, their current goals and strategies, and see what do we need to change or tweak. We also have a weekly call every Monday, which is an update with the whole network of what's working, what's not, so we can make those small adjustments and not just wait for the annual review. The thing about motivating franchisees is they have to do it themselves. We can certainly help them. We do an award system, which is done by turnover, and we seem to have some of the most competitive franchisees in the industry, so that helps. But they really have to have that fire in their belly themselves, and how we help them with that is we help them put their goals in place for what this business is going to mean to them personally and professionally.
We break our initial training down into 3 different segments, because I believe that there are 3 different segments in all different businesses. There's a sales element, there's a technical element, in this case it's painting cars, and there's an admin element. So we cover training around the sales aspects, We cover training. Obviously, the people that we bring in need to understand how to fix cars, so there's a large element of training on that area. And then we look at what's required from an admin point of view. You can be a great painter and a great salesperson, but if you haven't got your paperwork in order, then you can go bust because you're not collecting your money fast enough. So all those three elements are covered in the initial training. And while we have a period of time where they're with us in our head office location training, we look at the initial support up to 3 months and keep very, very close to franchisees for the 3 month when they come back and have a 3-month review and where we sign off their initial training. Ongoing training for franchisees is vast. There are a number of different elements that we look for. Again, looking at the 3 different elements, the sales, the technical and the admin, we're looking to improve all those elements all the time. There's a number of ways that we monitor franchise performance. Obviously, their sales are one aspect of that, but we have service levels that they need to attain for the national contract work that we have. There are levels of quality that we require and that we're looking at all the time. So whether it's through monthly meeting and updating where they're at with their sales and their service levels, or whether it's spot visits, there are a number of ways that we're assisting and supporting the guys. Just because somebody's not achieving something sometimes means they just need training and further training, so we'll support with that. But our ambition is to take these guys through the franchise journey so that they develop and become a business manager at some point. Motivating franchisees, again, is one of the million-dollar questions. There are different motivations for different franchisees, and ultimately, I think that self-employed businessmen, franchisees, the motivation needs to lie with them to get up in the morning and to deal with the daily challenges. For us as a business, I think that, and what I've seen over the years, I think that people are very motivated in success, in development, in continual improvement. And so having a fast-growing business that is bringing in more work, I think that tends to motivate the franchisees to move their own businesses on, and we all grow together.
Our initial training for new owners who join Right at Home is a 2-week course which is built around the platform of our business and the pillars of our business. So there's 2 or 3 days that are focused solely on quality and compliance, being compliant not only with the Right at Home standards, but also the standards of our care inspectorate as well. There's 2 or 3 days focused on the marketing, which includes digital and online training, as well as the use and ability to use our marketing materials locally and hold conversations with referral sources. There's a couple of days that we focus on finances, understanding the accounts, profit and loss, gross margins. So that's delivered to a high level across the board there. We also focus on recruitment, making sure that our new owners understand who to recruit, how to recruit, and why they're recruiting the right personnel into their business. And we also talk at length about the HR side of the business, employment law, and also understanding the fact that they've got to be leaders within their organisation. So there's a strong leadership training and coaching day as well as part of the journey. Our ongoing training and support covers everything that is covered in the initial new owner training. So we cover marketing, training, we talk about how to train their key personnel within the organisation, recruitment, HR, quality, compliance, and also the online digital marketing platforms. So that is an ongoing process that we have calls with, which are scheduled. We also undertake a lot of site visits from the head office support team to ensure that each and every office is fully utilising the support, tools and training that we provide to them on a daily basis. We monitor franchisee performance across varying areas. It's not just profitability, it's not just finances and revenues that we look at. We look at the quality scoring that each individual office undertakes in terms of internal and external audits, along with the ability for our clients to post onto an independent website called homecare.co.uk the client's feedback on exactly how our care and support is being received. So that's something that's out of our control, and we focus heavily on that because we understand that if the client is feeding back really high scores in terms of they feel that the client is receiving excellent care and support, that we know that the quality levels are there. So we do it on not just on the profitability and the finances, but we focus very much on the quality. Another way in which we monitor the performance of our individual franchisee business owners is through the use of the key performance indicators, which reflect the number of hours of care they deliver that week, the number of staff that they have within their business, the cost that it's taken to deliver the care, and the revenues that it's generated on the back of that. We can see trends within that weekly and monthly report that can highlight where the business owner may be needing extra additional support on recruitment, for instance, or also it might be that they're growing at a rate that is slightly excessive and might raise some alarm bells, where we may have to get in touch with the business owner and say if they may need to cease taking on the work and actually just making sure that they focus on quality, because the two are aligned and the quality will drive the growth.